Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. In this video, we're going to expose NasDaily. Now, you need to understand that there is this struggle that's happening now in the Muslim world where Westerners are coming in there to try and change Islam, try and westernize the Muslim nations. And this isn't like a conspiracy. They are open and transparent in this. One of the reasons why they were in Afghanistan, it wasn't just about removing Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. This was about staying in Afghanistan to try and change the culture over there. We know this because, for example, when you look at women's education, they wanted women's education to be like Western education, that there is no separation between sexes, that women and men also can paint pictures, can do artwork that exposes the male organs and the female organs, when this is clearly forbidden in Islam. There are many things that are forbidden in Islam, like you can do certain painting, but Western liberalism says no. You can't just do certain painting. You can do all types of painting. It doesn't matter how provocative it is. They said that women can play the same sports as men, not just the same sports as men, but they can also play volleyball together, or tennis together, or basketball together. So it wasn't just about Afghanistan implementing women's sports, it was that they should play alongside men. Now, we know that some sports, you need certain dress codes. I mean, you can't do, diving off a diving board in a swimming pool in a burqa now, can you? Or a niqab. You need to get into swimwear. And I don't care how Islamic you say these swimwears are, they're still tight, right? They still show a particular figure. But no, they had to instill this to say, no, women, women can go out and dress the way they want and, participate in what sports they want. So that's their whole agenda, that's their whole motive. And then they'll go to Iraq and then, in Saudi Arabia, and then they'll say, no, women should be able to drive. But notice it wasn't just about women should be able to drive. It's about women should be able to drive alone, you see. First they're arguing women have to have licenses. They impose this, right? Women have to have driving licenses. Now, when Saudi Arabia changed the law and said, okay, they can have licenses, now it wasn't good enough to have a license. It was, I need to have a license, but I need to be able to drive alone. But Islam says you need a mahram. So there must be a male guardian. And so now they're saying, oh no, we just don't want the license. We also don't want a male guardian. It needs to be, a woman needs to drive alone. So notice their thing is not about Islam. The thing is not about the driver's license. It's about implementing Westernism completely, wholeheartedly into the Muslim world. And we see this with NasDaily. He is obviously an ex-Muslim. He doesn't look at himself as being religious or a Muslim. And so they promote these sorts of ideas, which is to reform the Muslim world, right? And they make a video about Iraq. Let's have a listen. Now,
when you Google Iraq, the first thing you see is this. You see war.
Now, in this video, you're going to see how a very liberal, secular, non-hijabi, right? A vegetarian, most likely a feminist, right? Goes into Iraq to promote, look how free she is. Have a listen.
Terrorism, guns, danger. It's kind of the last place you think of as a tourist destination. But today, I came to Iraq to show you the Iraq beyond the war. The new Iraq that people haven't heard about and won't see in the news.
Listen, Iraq is danger country, but you see that Iraq is
Safe.
say that, yeah,
Safe.
safe country.
We think Iraq has no tourism because tourists were banned for 40 years. But now, for the first time in a long time, they have visa on arrival.
Now, here is the thing, folks. Perhaps one of the reasons why tourists were banned for 40 years, because tourists probably came there to make conditions for themselves. Traveling to Iraq, they probably wanted to live the Western values that they wanted to live in Muslim countries. And possibly he wanted that banned because prevention is better than cure. He understands that the West wants to come there to change the condition of Muslims. They want to implement Westernism into that country. And so look what we have now, folks. We have a double-edged sword. You don't invite him in, you hold on to Islamic tradition. You invite him in, and now what we have is an Iraq that is changing into Westernism. Now, you may say, oh, why are you being intolerable? Shouldn't, people have the freedom to choose what they want to do? And this is the double standards, folks. This is the double standards. If Muslims come to the West, what do they say? If you want to live by Sharia law, if you want to live by Islamic law, if you want to live by Islamic tradition, pack up your bags and go back to the Middle East. Don't they say this? Let's be honest. Muslims, let's be honest. This is what they say to us all the time. And if you want to practice your religion, keep your religion in the closet. Keep your religion in your mosque. Keep your religion in your home. Don't promote halal. Don't come into politics and promote Islam, because you can't do that. You need to accept secular liberalism and our liberal values. If you try and bring Islam or try and promote it through the legal system, then we're going to boycott you, we're going to freeze your assets, we're going to stop funding, you're going to lose your position, we're going to deport you overseas. This is what they do. This is the oppression they do to Muslims. And we see in France how they're banning the burqa, banning the hijab. They've banned it in France. You want to practice the hijab? Go back to the Muslim world. And the hypocrisy, right? They're like, oh, we still allow you to practice and worship your God. We still allow you to eat halal, and we allow halal slaughter shops to exist in the West. We make it comfortable for you, but there's always a catch, right? The farmers in Australia profit a lot of money through halal slaughtering. Most of their customers come from foreign countries. So when it comes to financial interest, they allow it, right? And trust me, they actually allow mosques, because those mosques most of the time are run by government enterprises that are using mosques to try and de-radicalize Muslims. But what they mean by de-radicalization is not to implement, to stop terrorism. No, their term of de-radicalization means to give up on all beliefs of Sharia law. Or else they would have shut down most of the mosques by now, but they're very clever. They leave the mosques open so they can be run by Western governments. And we know this because Western governments come to those mosques and they basically say, oh, it looks a little small. Your prayer room looks a bit small. How about we start investing and making it larger, and we will give you all the government funding. But here is the deal. You preach our version of Islam to society. And that's why Muslims get frustrated, because when they go to Jummah prayer and they want to listen to the khutbah in the minbar, what they're hearing about is how to practice wudu or how to do wudu. And the Muslims are saying, we don't want to hear about wudu. We don't want to hear about ablution, how to wash yourself. Talk to us about the current situation of the Muslims. Talk to us and tell us about how foreign involvement in the in the Muslim world is creating terrorism. But no, they don't get into political discussions. They don't get into blame games. They don't talk about these certain issues. They don't make Muslims think about who is really causing terrorism in the world, right? So they're using Muslim masjids to silence criticism against the West. And if you try and criticize the West, you're labeled as a hate preacher. The government will come in, they'll bring in their media, they'll label the imam as a hate preacher to then distance the rest of the Muslim community from that preacher. Right? So this is their whole agenda. The mosques here are run by Westerners. Let's continue with the video.
We think as women we have to cover up because it's a Muslim country. But we only had to at some mosques or very religious cities. All right, my friends, we are wearing what is this called?
Abaya.
A very intense abaya. I had to wear gloves because my nails are not allowed to be painted in the shrine. Otherwise, you can dress how you want.
So notice the image she showed. So, and again, this is their way of promoting Westernism into the Muslim world. So her objective was to say, look, yes, there are certain cities or religious cities where you have to cover up. And she mentioned how if you go to a particular shrine, you need to cover up, or a masjid. But outside that, you can expose yourself. You can basically show, or you can dress the way you want. Again, this is to promote Westernism. We don't believe that is allowed. Under true Islamic jurisdiction, you're not allowed to come in there and dress the way you want, because that could be provocative. That is promoting Westernism. And we know this because in the Western country, first they said that the reason why they're removing the burqa or the niqab, it was for security reasons. But we know that that was just a scapegoat. That was a smokescreen. They use that as an excuse to first get into the idea to make it ideal to remove the hijab or the niqab. But the true motive is, when you go and look at what they actually really do say they want to preserve the French culture. And if you have niqab or the hijab, it's going to undermine the French culture. If we have too many of it, it's going to undermine our values. And so their idea was first to lie, to make an excuse that it was for security reasons. But eventually what they really meant was, and we knew they actually meant this, and they were using security as an excuse, it was about preserving the culture of the French. And so we make the same reasoning as Muslims. We're not being hypocritical about this. Now, you may say, oh, well, Mustafa, when you come to the West and you want to live amongst the West, I mean, we allow your wife to cover. Yeah, it just depends where. If it's Australia, yes, they allow it. Although they are trying to ban it. They are trying to follow the French. But if I go to France, it's not allowed. So again, you see the inconsistency. And here's why I say it's not hypocritical. Because if I say, well, in the Muslim country, you shouldn't be doing it, but when I come live here, I should be doing it. First of all, I was born here. Secondly, my objective is to go to a Muslim country when the time is right. I'm financially preparing for that. Secondly, it's more hypocritical when you say you're a liberal and you're a secular country, but then you don't want Muslims to have their values in those countries. Secondly, Muslim countries are not hypocritical because they believe in, well, they are changing, unfortunately, like Iraq, because you're coming there, you're bombing them back to the Stone Age so they can submit to Western values. That's why you wanted to go there in the beginning. It wasn't really about Saddam Hussein or weapons of mass destruction, because there was no weapons of mass destruction. And so your objective was to root out Islamic values. But if you look at real conservative Islam, it doesn't believe in your Western liberal democratic values. And so if we ban Westerners from wanting to come there to dress up the way they want, it's not really hypocritical. But it's more hypocritical when you say you believe in Western liberal values, but for example, I can't have a legal polygamous marriage in this country because polygamy is against Western liberal values according to your beliefs here in Australia. In America, it's different because Western liberalism isn't consistent. And so, again, you look like the hypocrite because you claim you believe in Western liberalism, but here in Australia, you're not allowed to have polygamous marriages. And in order to do that, you need to win votes. You need to select Muslim candidates who are in agreement with some Sharia principles. But of course, if you try and do that, you'll be outcasted because the majority of the people would be against you. And they'll never get into office because the majority will always be non-Muslim in this country. And so minority rights will never be given in this country, right? Because, they say, oh no, if you live in the West, freedom for all, bunch of nonsense. It's freedom for all. It depends upon how many votes you get. The LGBTIQ community in this country only had rights when they had enough votes in Parliament. In the Parliament. When they didn't have enough votes in the Parliament, their sexual intimacy through marriage was illegal. For many, many years, rights weren't given to them. So liberal rights depend on who is the biggest proportionate voters. And if you don't have that, then rights are never given. So minority rights depend upon who's in power. And notice in the video, she also hugged two men. This is against Islam. She was in arms with two men of the opposite sex. Again, in Islam, this is prohibited, that there is a partition between men and women. You can't touch the non-mahram, right? And she's promoting this in this video. She's saying, look, no, we can actually touch each other. We can hug each other. So this is their way of, again, imposing their Westernism in the Muslim world.
I thought they might not like me because I'm American. But the first thing the Border Patrol said to me was,
Welcome to Iraq.
thank you. I thought it would be full of military and checkpoints.
And here's the double standards, right? Like, who is she asking? Those people could be, they look like, because they're beardless, right? They don't have any beard. Most likely, well, I'm not saying that if you've got no beard, you're not a Muslim or you're not a Sunni. Yes, there are Sunnis. Like Saddam Hussein, for example, he didn't have a beard, he had a mo. But generally, these people here are coming from Iran. They have instilled, remember she spoke about shrines and things like that. This is more probably a Shia community. And these people generally are in bed with the Americans. They actually wanted the Americans to come there so they can get rid of Sunni leadership. So when she's saying, oh, do you love America? Of course they're going to say we love America. These are the ones who sold out their own leader and their own culture for America, the greater America.
It was, but they were very friendly. This is a gift from you. Thank you, shukran. It's very nice. Thank you so much. People think women are probably at home, but I saw them out running their own businesses. Wow.
There's nothing more important than this. And, they're obviously trying to westernize these Muslim women. Her neck is exposed, uncover, go out there, don't worry about your house duties, don't worry about raising the children. Your focus should be to earn a living, and I'm pretty sure, a lot of these Muslim feminists too, they'd say, oh, look, maybe she's a single woman, maybe she's it. But no, their argument is not just upon single women, right? Maybe she's divorced and she's got kids. No, they don't. These Western Muslim women don't say, oh, we're going to promote women going into the workforce for divorcees, for widowed women. No, they say all women, regardless if you're married, because if something happens, if he leaves you, then what will you do, right? So their argument isn't just for a certain situation. They try and use a certain situation to appeal for women to go into the workforce, to say, oh, look, she's, what if this lady who is running this business is a woman and she's the only breadwinner, her husband left her, whatever. They're not talking really. They use that as an excuse, obviously, but their whole agenda is to take even the woman who is married and her husband is supporting her. They also want her to join the workforce. And see, what they should really be saying is, okay, as a backup, yeah, she can gain her education. No one's saying don't gain education, because if your husband does leave you, then you can join the workforce. You have academia behind you. You've got these credentials, right? But what they say is, no, she needs to also work. She needs to win the same money he's winning, right? So they break the family union when they do this, because the kids are raised in kindergartens and childcare centres. They're away from the family. Mum and dad are too busy trying to work, make an income. And the reason why they do want women in the workforce, really, is because so you can pay more taxes, so the government becomes more rich. If only there's one breadwinner at home, the government is not getting enough tax when they could get tax from two people in the household. And so this is their whole agenda. It's to feed into that materialism. It's to feed into make that country more rich and more prosperous, at the expense of ruining and destroying many homes. Kids are growing up isolated from their parents. They don't spend enough quality time with their children. For instance, when I go to work, sometimes my children cry. They're saying, Baba, don't take extra work. Please don't. We want to spend time with you. And I actually had to hold back the tears of my children, right? Because I just had to. But see, forget about taking the man out of the house. They also want to take the woman out of the house. When her duty is, again, I'm not saying that women shouldn't gain an education. I'm not saying that women who are in a very vulnerable situation shouldn't work. If they have, if there's no other income or nothing else, of course, there are certain rules. Even in Islam, where if you can't find food to eat and the only thing available is pork, you can take from that pork. You can eat from that pork, because life is more important than death. So Islam can put certain reasons for women to join the workforce and gain education and so forth. But see, their priority is to make women at the same status, same education, same wealth, take her out of the house, equal share in the outside and in the inside, and their objective is to ruin. And we know that one of the reasons why divorce is skyrocketing in the West, it is huge compared to the Muslim world, is because of this crisis. A study was conducted where women in high positions such as CEOs, they've had the highest divorce rate. This is all academically proven. I can put a hyperlink below this video and you can see it for yourself.
Wow, she made this. Wow. didn't want to be on camera. And while some women were shy, a lot of people loved the camera and asked for photos and selfies. Say hi!
And so again, she's trying to break that stigma. She's trying to say, look, you know, we can be Western, we can take selfies, we can upload our pictures on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. And this is the reason, right? This again defeats the purpose of the hijab. The purpose of the hijab is to conceal your beauty, right? And so they will encourage Muslim women to do makeup tutorials and to beautify the face, which again defeats the purpose. The purpose of the hijab is not just to say you have an attachment to God, it is to prevent or help minimize abuse. And so what they're doing is they're encouraging women to take selfies, upload it on Instagram, upload it on picture, defeating the purpose of the niqab and the burqa and things like that, which says to conceal one's beauty. And so their objective, again, is to do this. It is to westernize the Muslim women. And we've seen this, a catalogue, a magazine was published, a Muslim woman in a hijab was advertised on Playboy. Can you believe this? She actually advertised herself. And what was her excuse? Oh, you know, if we advertise a Muslim in a hijab on Playboy, this will help the hijab get accepted in the West. You know, people won't alienate us anymore because you know why? It's on Playboy. Imagine this, folks. She advertised the hijab on Playboy. A Muslim woman did this, a model, a hijabi. And there was a lot of Muslims out there, you know, a lot of the westernized liberal Muslims. Oh, look, you know, this is fantastic. Oh, there's nothing really wrong with it. Can you imagine, folks? Nothing wrong with it. That she promotes her hijab out of all places on the front cover of Playboy magazine. So on one hand, she's saying, well, I'm doing this because I want to promote the hijab so it can be sort of accepted instead of being alienated. There's 1,000 other places she could have done that. 1,000 other places. But why did she choose Playboy? Now, Muslims are probably buying that magazine to read her story, to read the hijab. And what are they seeing on the other pages? They're seeing naked women, right? So notice how they play the devil's advocate.
I thought there would be no parties, but we had the time of our lives, singing and dancing at rap concerts.
Notice again the disrespect coming into the Muslim world, right? And introducing Westernism, introducing rap music, right? This is against Islam. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, if you imitate them, you're among them. They're dressing like them, singing like them, rapping like them. And this party has intermingling between men and women. You can see in this video that there were women at the start of this video. You can see them behind their heads, right? Intermingling, partying, rapping, right? Islam. I mean, why didn't she say, well, Islam allows partying, and she could have just shown a Muslim wedding where you have a Muslim wedding and you have the segregation between men and women. She could have showed that party, but no, she didn't choose to show that party. She chose to show a westernized party, right? So again, to bring nightclubs into the West, to bring that scene in the West, men and women, rap music, faisha, you know, to bring, you know, the lyrics are here about sexualization. You know, rap music, that's what it's about. Drugs, sex, rock and roll, being a bad boy, right? This is what they're promoting in the Muslim world.
And now we are at a kite festival. Yes, indeed, a kite festival. life with a delicious local mango sauce called amba. This is delicious. This is the best food I've had in Iraq so far. And it was 35 cents. I thought people might be suspicious of foreigners, but I was invited for lunch over and over.
Elena, you invited my house, please, for lunch.
Wow.
So look at this. He invites her to her house. Can you imagine? A man, a Muslim man, tells a non-Muslim girl, you are invited to my house. Right? Is this the etiquette of a Muslim? Can you imagine the Prophet Muhammad just going to a random non-Muslim woman and saying, you are invited to come to my house? What would the Westerners say? In fact, what would the Muslims say? The Muslims would say, oh, wallahi, brother, this is a fake hadith. This hadith is not right. Even the most modern Muslim, even the most modern secular Muslim, right? They would actually shun this and say, oh, no, this isn't the behavior of the Prophet, because this actually shows that the Prophet Muhammad was trying to maybe, pick this lady up, inviting her to the house, right? They'd say, oh, look, it's, why is he doing that? Why is he just telling some random woman come to his house, right? They'll actually say, oh, this is making the Prophet look like a prophet of sex, right? So why is he inviting her to her house? We know this because you look at the moderate Muslims like Mufti Abu Layth, right? He rejects the hadith in Sahih Bukhari where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam approached a non-Muslim woman and he said to her, she wasn't a non-Muslim woman, she was a Muslim woman, and he said to her, I give myself to you as a gift, meaning he was promoting, he was trying to ask her, he was proposing to her basically in marriage, right? And the Western Muslims or the liberal Mufti Abu Layth Muslims would say, oh no, we need to reject this hadith. We need to reject this hadith because how could the Prophet say, I want to gift myself to you? This is trying to show the sexualization of the Prophet. When there was nothing really sexualization, that's the way they spoke back then. I've actually made a video response to this. You can see the link below and I've posted a response to that. And so they'll say, oh, look, this is sexualization of the Prophet, blah, 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 right? But then you have these people, they have no problem. A Muslim young man, looks like a young man, they don't even look married, yeah? They don't probably, still looks like a kid, maybe 20, 21 years old, 22, let's say he's 22 years old, right? Approaching a non-Muslim woman and saying, you're invited to my house, right? When in Islam, you can't just do that. You can't just approach a non-Muslim woman and say that. And we know you can't really, because the same liberal modernists accuse the hadith of being fake because the Prophet ﷺ approached a Muslim woman and said, I want to gift myself to you. And they said, oh, this is ajib, this is a fake narration, the Prophet wouldn't do that. But then they accept circumstances like this in this video.
Came all the way to my hotel just to give me gifts. They gave me these presents. They're very cute. All these rings. Thank you for the gifts. Very nice. And women I didn't know at all fixed my hijab for me when they saw me struggling with it. They don't want to be on camera, but they're helping me with my hijab. People said I wouldn't be safe, but when our car broke down, I actually hitchhiked and so many people stopped to help immediately. Car broke down, and so I pulled over another car, and now we are hitchhiking to the world's one of the most ancient cities, and we have a nice new friend named Muhammad. I thought I would just...
And notice this, folks, and this is why the Saudi Arabian government actually banned women driving alone, right? She says her car broke down. And who was in the car? Was it women that were helping her? No, it was other men. She was in the car with 3 other men. Now, God forbid, and by the way, these non-Muslims would always say, oh, Muslim men rape women, right? They'd always say that, right? You know, they come here to Europe, they rape our women. You know, we've got to stop immigration. We've got to stop Syrian refugees coming into Europe, because when they come, they start raping our women, you know. Gosh, I'm sounding like Donald Trump. But yeah, that's their narrative. And she's saying, oh, look, you know, my car broke down and I'm hitchhiking with 3 men. And this is why Islamic law says when women drive, they need a male guardianship. If she got raped, God forbid, if she got raped, what would she say? She'd come back to the West and she'll say, I was raped by Muslim men. In the car, they raped me. And she'll give a different image of Islam. She'd blame Islam, wouldn't she? She'll say, look, oh, it's because of these Muslims. But no, these Muslims are breaking Islamic protocols. That they shouldn't have hitchhiked her. Number one, they shouldn't have hitchhiked her. They should have called authorities. Right? But you see, you might say, well, oh, you know, what were they going to do? They were going to leave a woman there vulnerable by herself, whatever. But you see, Islam, it could have prevented this situation. If they had laws where she's not allowed to drive by herself, she needs a male guardian with her, then you know what? She wouldn't have got into this situation in the first place. But of course, they would have said, oh, Islam is oppression, you know, it doesn't allow women to drive. It doesn't allow women to drive by themselves because it cares about their circumstance. It cares about situations like this, breaking down in an isolated place, you know, where there could be no locals for kilometers on end in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a desert, right? You know, you could get raped, you could get sexually abused, and you could have to live with that for the rest of your life, with that trauma. So Islam believes in prevention is better than cure. But no, they don't want to understand it. They want to believe in, oh, total equality, no, whatever. You know, if men can drive by themselves, why can't women? But men are biologically different, built differently. That's why women don't jump into the ring with Mike Tyson, right? It's man versus man. It's not women versus man, right? Because generally women are more petite, women are more feminized, women are more feminine, right? So she'll always be overpowered by men, generally in most cases. And so why men have got an exception in this case, why they can drive alone. How many times have you heard a man being raped? Be honest. But how many times have you heard a woman being raped, right? So we need to take biology as a factor. It's not about misogyny and, you know, men have it over women. No, it's certain things prescribe favors for men, certain things favor women. I mean, you even believe that. Men can only fight men. Men can only fight Mike Tyson. Women can't fight Mike Tyson. Women can't get the same prize money to fight Mike Tyson in a rematch. No, only men can. Right? Because they're biologically built differently. But no, feminism wants to lie to women. They are the biggest bloodthirsty killers of women. They are the ones who have caused so much rape for women because they've said, no, you can dress the way you want, you can wear what you want, you can go to any club at any time, you can catch the train at any time and walk the streets at any time. And we see that women, it happened recently in Australia, where she was walking alone, got off the train, coming from school, and she was raped at night in a park. She was raped, right? And people are saying, oh, you know, how can this happen? Why does it happen? You know, we need to start educating men. No, you can't. You can't always educate every man. There are sexual predators. That's why Islam recommends that you take a mahram, a male guardianship. It's in favor of you. It's not against you. It's in favor of you. It's there to protect you. And so when these people breach Islam, breach Islamic laws, and you have rape skyrocketing in the West, You see why things like this happen. And for those who want to deny that there is no connection between what a woman wears and where she goes and male guardianship and rape and things like this, they are lying to themselves. There is enough statistics, there is enough social experience out there that what women wear do have to do with cases of rape, and you will see that in the report below. I'll put a hyperlink below this video, and you can see social experiments performed that women who dress provocatively attract the opposite sex more than those women who actually cover themselves.
I pulled over another car, and now we are hitchhiking to the world's one of the most ancient cities, and we have a nice new friend named Muhammad. I thought I would just see ruins because of the war, but instead I saw the most unbelievably beautiful mosques and amazing places like the marshlands filled with water.
Does he have his hands behind her, singing to her? Is this their Westernism? This is their Westernism, right? He's got his hand behind her. What's he doing? Like, is he like touching her or something?
Ancient Babylon. Guys, this is a giant labyrinth.
Can we do it?
Or maze. You want to do
Wait, yeah,
that?
actually, I love mazes.
See you.
Look at this, guys. We had our whole country bombed. You know, Westernism came there. They blew up Iraq, destroyed Iraq, bombed most of their mosques. But you know what? We can show you isolated cases of these beautiful mosques and, you know, these mazes. You know, let's just forget about what all the liberalism and secular think tanks done to the Muslim world, where they destroyed, killed 500,000 Iraqis, bombed their country back into the Stone Age. But you know, we can still sing and dance, and we'll just show you some beautiful artifacts of Muslim mosques.
5 hours and the biggest active cemetery in the world. But like in many countries, the best part of Iraq was its generous, open, and friendly people. So yes, you should be careful of Iraq, but not because it's dangerous, but because once you get there,
you will see that we have liberalized and westernized Iraq. Imagine, folks, imagine I said that the Western world is so hostile against the Muslim world. You know, they don't allow a lot of things over there for Muslims. But you know what? We'll go bomb them, we will kill them, we will ruin them to bits, we'll crush down secular liberalism, we will invent and we will implement Sharia law into that country, we'll make everyone look more Islamic than Western. And so we will say, yes, it has been militarized. There are Muslim tanks and helicopters and ships. But on the bright side, look, there are all these happy Muslims who love living by conservative Islamic law and live by Islamic principles. Imagine I did that for a moment.
might want to stay forever. Adios.
Yes, and we said to Muslims who want to go there for tourism, you might want to now go there and stay there forever. Adios.
And I'll see you in Iraq.
And I will see you in America.